Coach, we're trying to get through this bizarre era here of what will be remembered as the canceled season of coronavirus, and you finished 16-16, and you finished on an incredible upswing in that final game against Colorado.
Yeah, our guys, I thought we were playing well. I liked our draw going into the tournament with Colorado. I liked our draw versus Arizona State. I told people that not taking anything away from them, but when we were playing them down there, it was their senior day, and they're coming off a home loss to Washington, and really we're in a must-win situation. Isaac and CJ had arguably their two poorest games of the year at the same time, and I looked up with a minute and 24 to go, under 2 minutes, and the game was tied. That I thought that, man, if we could play these guys on a neutral floor, we just have to play decent, and we would match up pretty well. And so I liked our matchup against Colorado, and I liked our matchup versus Arizona State.
You and I have spoken a lot on the record about when you look back a bit at Oklahoma, at Washington, Oregon State. These are the best runs at each of those schools, the common thread being you've been there, Western Oregon, where you just came from as the head coach. As those programs built up, how similar or at what point of this stage is Washington State right now after year one with you guys, if you were to compare and contrast?
Well, Washington State is a job in itself in a university, though on a larger scale, has more parallels with Western Oregon than it does Oklahoma and Washington. Oklahoma has a brand name that, regardless of how the second and third conversation go, everyone really on a national level knows who the Oklahoma Sooners are. And a large part of that's because of their football, but at the same time, there's a pretty storied basketball tradition there as well. So when we were there, it was a matter of taking the step we needed to take. Was Coach Sampson at that time, who obviously was here as well, had gone to the NCAA tournament the most years in a row without ever winning it in the first round. And so he was at a point where he was very clear about wanting to get to that next step, which was to advance in the NCAA tournament. And we were fortunate enough to do that a few different times. And then at Washington had been struggling. So therefore, there was some rebuild involved there, but we had a good run of local talent, which helped propel, and then we tried to fill in the pieces from there. Here, I think we're at an earlier stage than we were at either of those places. And much like Western Oregon, you gotta kind of chart your own course, because at Western Oregon, you're in a league with the equivalent of your UCLA's and Arizona's with Seattle Pacific and Western Washington, schools that have gone to Final Fours and won national championships, Central Washington, etc. And you really had to you just had to do it a little bit different than those schools. Because if you tried to align yourself with them, we didn't have the tradition. We didn't have a lot of the things that they had.
When fans hear, the Division II level, Western, they're probably not familiar with it. They'd be more familiar with the Mountain West or the Big West or the West Coast Conference. You'd alluded to kind of the powers that be in that situation, but you brought Western Oregon to a Final Four.
Yeah, we definitely had a good run. I mean, we had two teams win 33 games, and one went to the Final Four, one went to the Elite Eight. And our roster makeup, how I was trying to draw a parallel, just didn't look the same as what the traditional powers did. We had to do things just a little bit differently than they did. And I think the same applies here, in that if we tried to do it the same way that UCLA and Arizona and the traditional powers, right now Oregon certainly one, that it would be hard, because people would line up and they make comparisons when they make decisions, and those comparisons wouldn't be as favorable for us. So we have to look at doing it a little bit differently than how those schools do.
What do you make of the very recent news discussions about the additional options for the GLeague with their new system? They have that financial compensation, name, image, and likeness, and how that affects college basketball. What are your knee-jerk reactions to all that?
Well, twofold. One is that I think the guys that are going into the GLeague in some ways, I actually think they're not making a good financial decision, because if Jalen Green is a and I haven't spent a lot of time with him, I don't know him, and I haven't seen him play that much, but if he is an automatic lottery pick next year, and he's really, really, really wanting to maximize his investment without playing college basketball, he's just go to IMG for a year and work out, because essentially it's about the next contract he signs, not this one. And so if I was an agent for him, I would probably pump the brakes and say, hey, if for whatever reason we just don't want to go to college, doesn't fit you, you're not a good student, whatever the reasoning is, let's just go work out at IMG and have teams come in and watch you work out all year and protect our lottery status. But from the NCAA standpoint, my guess is it'll get them moving quickly on that likeness thing to be able to show another way that they can compensate players, because they're not going to want the players that would have ended up at Kentucky or Duke. I think they've probably been the two schools that have had the most one and dones lately to go play in the G League. I mean, other than that, I mean, it's not going to affect very many college teams and programs, but the ones that does affect, I think will get the NCAA to respond pretty quickly.
Do you think there'll be a bit of a trickle down from, let's say there are more departures, and again, you alluded to it, we're talking about 5 to 10 kids, at least in this initial phase of this. Do you think there will be a ripple effect from what Kentucky and Duke wind up doing, or will it really just be kind of isolated cases and they just sort of change their ways a little bit?
I don't think it'll ripple effect to say what we're doing, but I think there'll be again, the ripple effect will be that the schools that are traditionally signing those types of kids are going to be ones that want to have an opportunity to get their situation to where they can be more favorable compared to the G League, and that likeness situation and how much money. I mean, a kid in Lexington, Kentucky can probably generate a lot of money through his likeness. And so I think the package that is and how that's going to work and how it's going to be presented and legislated will happen pretty quickly.
It's really a lot in flux with that. It's a fascinating thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it, it would be hard for me to imagine how it is you're going to legislate that exactly, because
Right.
again, what someone's able to get from their likeness at one place is going to be different than another. So do you put a cap on it? Let's say you can do your likeness, but you can't receive more than $50,000 or $100,000, and then you're going to have someone counter. Well, then now you're countersuit that's not fair. They should be able to get however much a capital system that they can get. And so I think there's definitely a big can of worms there that you're opening and how you're going to govern it. But I do think with some players that would have ended up at places like that, I mean, Kentucky was one of Jalen Green's final schools, that there'll be some pretty quick movement by the NCAA.
How do you feel like in terms of the Cougs this next year with what you know of the pack, although some of these things can change, of course, but how do you feel about the newcomers coming in terms of immediate impact and the CJ Ellaby's status and what the team and roster looks like next year?
Well, I think the conference is really good. I think that if you look at the conference, I mean, UCLA basically returns everybody. USC is recruiting at an extraordinarily high level. Arizona State is one of the – people ask me how's the conference compared to the last time I was in it. There's two schools that have really upped the ante since the last time I was in the Pac-12, and that is USC and Arizona State. They're both at a level and competing and recruiting at a level that's higher than last time. And I think Arizona State will be very good. Arizona lost enough to where I don't know if they'll be quite as talented, but in their case, they'll still be talented. I think the league is going to be really good. And in regard to us, in terms of our newcomers and their impact, the three that I've seen and spent the most time with are Jeff, TJ, and FA. I haven't seen Jocko live, and so I don't know as much about him. But with FA, I think he'll have to play right away some. He's a front court guy that has size and length and is very athletic. He's legit 6'9", and he's got a 7+ foot wingspan. and his ability to impact the game at the defensive end of the floor should be felt right away. And that's the bottom line. In order to be able to go on the court right away, you have to be able to make a positive impact somewhere. And
Coach, I can't wait. I'm all fired up for it. I want to get to see you guys back at it, see you practicing in the gym there, and see how it all looks when it's coming together.
No, I appreciate it. And then I think TJ Bamba will play right away. His physical maturity, he's a guard wing, but he's all 6'4", 6'4.5", probably about 205 pounds. So I think him and FA immediately can impact the game the most. Jeff will need to play some. We're not real deep at that position in the backcourt, but I think his transition will be a little bit more because TJ and FA have been away from home for so long. So when they go to college, it's just another situation where they're away from home. And with Jeff, I just think his position is a little more demanding. And then in terms of returning guys, obviously CJ is in a good spot because I think he knows how much he's valued and needed here. And if the NBA puts a value on him that secures a future for him that he couldn't get by continuing in college, then that's another great opportunity. And if they don't, he can come back here. And I think 12 months from now, he'll be in an even more positive position. I think he's the type of guy that will improve. And then I think the world's economy will be in a better order.
Yeah, that's a huge wild card of what's the world like.
Yeah, I think the economy 12 months from now will definitely be more stabilized than it is now. I mean, like I said, for the NBA players, we're taking a 25% pay cut May 15th and one to follow at the end of the month. They'll get that corrected pretty quickly. But the fact that they're doing it right now gives you an idea of just it's the entertainment business. And right now, entertainment business is being affected as much as anything.
Thank you, Coach. Be safe. Stay well. Thank you for this time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.